Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our October meeting of City Island Rising. My name is John Doyle. I'm the president of the board. We want to welcome everyone from the community who's joined us today. We have a full agenda, and we're trying to be cognizant of time because we know some people want to watch the final presidential debate tonight. So it's been we rescheduled our meeting this month because we really had a very, very busy month of September. A lot of events, a lot of community happenings, a lot of things that we were that were going on. So we want to bring everybody fully up to speed. After that, we have a wonderful presentation by one of our own, Lauren Nye, who's joined us, who put together a really great presentation, which I know we're all looking forward to. And then following that, it'll be kind of a quick rapid fire of a few different things going on in the community we feel you should be aware of, things relating to Rodman's Neck, what the conversations with the NYPD have been as of late, things related to the Hutchinson River and how we're working with some of our elected officials to tackle the poor water quality that seeps down the Hutchinson River and into our waterway, which is a cause of concern for us all, as well as some related transportation issues and future community outreach events. So we have a really full agenda. The agenda should be in the chat. If you don't have it, just message me and I will resend it again. But we're gonna really just kick it off full steam ahead here. I want to thank everyone for joining us. Thank you, Beverly, for doing that for me. Is Louisa on? I know she was trying to join us from the car, so she may not be on yet, which is a-okay.
I don't see her yet, John.
Yeah, she had a very, very brief update. We did our City of Water Day with the Waterfront Alliance. It was Keisha, myself, Lauren, Louisa, and I think there were one or two other people, but it was a really great event. We all got out there, we all kayaked around the island, and we're going to set it up next year to be bigger and better, bring in a larger group of people, nice group activity. And it was just a really wonderful way of reconnecting with the waterfront and making sure people understand that, City Island without the water is City Island without the island. It doesn't make as much sense. It's like Pelham Parkway if you chop down all the trees, which they tried to do a few years ago. So we have to keep a very good connection with the waterfront, with the waterways. We are supposed to be good stewards of the environment. We know this is an issue that everyone cares about. So we look forward to doing it again next year, bigger and better. So I want to thank Louisa for setting that up. And then second thing on the agenda is the clean sweep, which I know David Diaz was going to bring us up to speed on.
Right. Oh, yes, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. No, we had an amazing day with the clean sweep. We had about 15 volunteers come out, 15 amazing City Islanders, I have to say. I met some new people and realized that I have two people that live in the same complex as me that came out that I did not know before. So yeah, we're able to really just clean up a bunch of different spots on the island, and a big shout out to the sanitation department for providing a lot of those tools for us to make it happen.
Absolutely. And if you take the bike path, now you're able to access it again because of good people like James, who's on the call, his partner, who's also on the call, David, everyone else, Beverly. They all really ripped down all those weeds that were literally protruding into the bike path. And as we were doing it, they actually stopped us to thank us. So I want to thank James was really the one in there with the weed clippers and everything, and really did a great job. So thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you all.
Yes. And we're going to do it again next year. Maybe, who knows, maybe even in the spring, right? So that'll be good. Thank you, David, for arranging that for everybody and for some of the supplies that were provided by sanitation. David had to wake up the day of the event and drive to Manhattan at, I believe, 6 in the morning. So we thank you for your patience, David. And then we had the census events and the ongoing census outreach events that were headed by Beverly.
Sure. So anybody who's been on these calls in the last 7 or 8 months knows that I'm a huge fan of the census. And one of our priorities this year was to really try to get a nice response rate for City Island to the 2020 census. the deadline for completing the census moved a few times during our planning efforts, but we were able to do a phone bank that was in August or September. I don't remember exactly when, where we called a few hundred City Islanders. And that was followed up by a live event in front of the Dominic's Market on what was at the time the last day of the census on September 30th. Of course, then that moved and then moved again. So the census is actually over now, and we got some folks signed up and did our part to make sure that City Island got appropriately counted in this census. So thanks to everybody for your support and for signing up to get counted.
Thank you, Beverly, for that. And those were our 3 big events. At the end of the meeting, we have 3 more events on the calendar that we're either co-sponsoring or we're directly participating in. So we're going to get to those at the end of the section, but they're all November events. They're actually all in the same week, which is unfortunately the way these things kind of crumble sometimes. But we wanted to also, because we've been our September meeting and our October meeting, we're actually a little bit more than a month separated when you count the weeks. So we just wanted to give people a few updates on what's happened between those past 2 meetings, because members of the board have been working on behalf of the community. And I want to encourage everyone who's on this call, or anyone who's watching it thereafter, this will be posted to YouTube and Facebook a little later on today or tonight. If you have any questions about what's going on, you can email us at cityislandrising@gmail.com to get more involved. We'll connect you with the point person on these events. And, we want lots of citizen participation. We want as many people as it can be involved, because everybody brings a different perspective. So first thing that we want to recap on the agenda is a letter that the board communicated on the Gateway project, which is also under the purview of Beverly Jones.
Sure. So as many of you know, the Gateway project is a separately incorporated not-for-profit corporation that is working to get a license to develop, to maintain and develop the property that's right over the bridge on the left-hand side as you're coming onto the island for community uses and community purposes. And for full disclosure, I sit on the Gateway board, as do a couple other people on this call. So I'm wearing my Rising hat right now, but I wanted to disclose that just so that there's no perception of a conflict. Gateway applied for a license to use and develop and maintain that property for community use way back, either at the very beginning of the pandemic or even before, and have been waiting to hear back. In the meantime, a for-profit construction company has apparently gotten permission to use the site in order to access the neighboring property. And what that looks like over the last several weeks is a profusion of trucks and construction equipment, and most recently a storage unit and boats, which seem not consistent with what we've been told their license or their easement is. And so the City Island Rising supports the efforts of the Gateway project and believes that absolutely this should that the city should license this property to Gateway for community use, and has generally been supportive. Gateway asked the Rising and other community groups on City Island to write letters in support of the Gateway project to try and get an answer from the city in terms of what's going on with that property. So we drafted and sent a letter in support, sharing what that would mean to us, particularly with our commitment to the waterfront. So, and as far as I know, there has not been a response to those efforts yet. We will keep you posted.
Thank you, Beverly, for that update. And again, it's very important that we keep an eye on all development going on in City Island, but particularly on a spot that could really, is basically the front yard of everybody on City Island. It's super important. So thank you for your work and everyone else who's on the call who's involved in that for their work as well. David, you want to take it away about the Con Edison meeting first?
Sure. We did have a spirited discussion with the people of Con Ed. I think one of the main premise of the meeting was to talk about how we can possibly move forward and getting some of the power lines put beneath, so we can stop. We always seem to have an issue when we have a storm, and it could be just a minor windstorm, and trees come down and power lines are down, and people lose power, right? So as with Con Ed goes, we really did not get very far with that in terms of because they said about the cost and everything else, but for some reason, as we got to the end of the meeting, the gentleman led on to say, well, you know what, there may be light at the end of the tunnel. So who knows? We may, in fact, at some point in time in the future, get to see the lines put beneath ground on City Island.
And we are only one of two neighborhoods that does not currently have the lines underground within the Bronx. So we've been following up. I know Amy Ellen Cohen, who I'm not sure if she's on the call, but she got a lot of information at the last blackout we had last week. We immediately communicated that to Con Ed. So just keep in mind, if your power goes down for a long period of time, you are your best evidence collector. Send it to us. Let us know. Contact us via social media. Email us at cityislandrising@gmail.com. However you want to get in touch, we are keeping very well documented records so we can go back to Con Edison and say, what about this time when the power went out for 15 minutes? What about this time where this happened? And, we're talking all the time about, not inadequate utility usage and inadequate utility infrastructure, which I know James got onto the call in the social a little bit before this meeting started. So these are very important conversations for people to be having. We are considering going to the Public Service Commission to follow up on our conversation with Con Edison. So stay tuned. But David gave a very good, adequate, very great summary of what just occurred.
It is key that we document every time that we do have a whether it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, who cares, right? Every time that we do get a blackout, it has to be documented, right? Because that is what what Con Ed is going to need, right? Because we can say that we have all these issues, and they will disagree with us no matter what, right? And we are going to follow up with going to the Public Service Commission. That is for sure.
Yeah, and David's a very good advocate in these calls with Con Edison. Let me assure you, he doesn't hold back from them, and
very spirited.
Very spirited exchanges. And let's take the fact they concluded our call with maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel to be a good sign for putting the utility lines underground on City. Last thing, and this came right from the membership. This was in a response to a few different issues that have been occurring on City Island. Everyone remembers in 2018, we had the issues where it rained on election day, and the inside the voting site, no matter what party you are, we just want everyone to be able to vote. The scanners couldn't take damp ballots, led to extensive wait times. We had a lot of problems with that. On top of that, this year on primary day, I was getting phone calls right as the polls opened at 6 o'clock because our poll didn't open at 6 o'clock. As a matter of fact, our poll opened at 8:50. And I know Beverly and Lauren and a few other people were online. John Paradiso were all online waiting to use it. And, that is unfortunate. It was done because apparently a poll site person called in sick that day, but it shows inadequate planning, and it disenfranchised a whole group of people who might not have been able to come back and vote. So, that was unacceptable. So what we have done as a board is we wrote a letter to the Board of Elections, to Michael Ryan, who's the executive director, communicating these problems, attaching relevant newspaper articles and documentation to prove that these things happened beyond just our letter. And we're asking for them to do a full review of everything at the City Island poll site to make sure that these problems do not happen on election day of 2020. And Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Senator Biaggi, Assemblymember Benedetto, Councilmember Nye, all the elected officials were copied on this. It was sent electronically last night. So we are very hopeful that there'll be a full review of the poll site and these issues will become part of the past.
Just
So
if I can add to that, John, as coming from the campaign side, that we do have a hotline set up as well. So, and I'm very willing to provide my number if anybody who is online who needs or any issues, they can call me right away and I can report it to our hotline. We had the same hotline set up for the primary, so everything that happened within that time span of at the site was all documented as well. And well, yes, and we very aware, we are very aware of it.
Good. Well, thank you, David. And, obviously we had Common Cause involved. They were actually considering filing a lawsuit to extend polling hours. So hopefully between your efforts, their efforts, and this letter, the squeaky wheel gets the grease and the oil, right? So we'll see what transpires here. Moving on, because we're trying to keep this meeting fast flowing so everybody can get to where they need to get to at 9 o'clock. Our presentation tonight is by Lauren Nye, who is one of our board members. Deals with, yes, exactly, everybody. It deals with zoning, kind of the M1 manufacturing areas of City Island in a full context of some of the issues we're having now. Lauren is not only passionate about these issues, she's educated on these issues. She holds an MPA from Baruch College and has actually done, I believe, some of her capstone work on City Island zoning. So it's not just that she's passionate, she's also very well versed in City Island zoning. And we're blessed because not only does she sit on our board, she's also a resident of City Island, a clam digger, I believe. So without further ado, Lauren, please take it away.
Thanks, John. Yeah, 4th generation clam digger. So very excited to be here and thank you all for coming to listen tonight. Hopefully this doesn't take too long and is engaging. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So like John said, my presentation is on the special City Island District land use zoning designation, its intent, and current related hot topics. And so by hot topics, we have the Gateway Project, which you heard Beverly talk about tonight, DCP's comprehensive waterfront plan, which we've talked about in September, but is ongoing for the next few months. Stephanie, I know you're on the call. We talked last time about ferry service, and then there's also US Crane and Consolidated Yard. Before I begin, I wanted to level set with some definitions just so I'm not losing anyone. So when I talk about land use and zoning, the city or state or federal government, but usually it's the city, the local municipality, designates certain portions of land for different things. So it's known as use and intensity. So this piece of land is for commercial spaces, this is for manufacturing, and this is for residential. And then they also say, this is how big that residential building can be. And this is the shape of that residential building. So land is really important, especially in America, but the government does have some responsibility to make sure that you're not, for example, putting a school right next to a manufacturing zone. The other definition that I wanted to set up is special purpose districts. So this is a specific tool that the city's Department of City Planning, and I'll reference them as DCP throughout this, created in the 70s. And it's really to acknowledge over 60 different pieces of land in New York City that have special characteristics. And City Island is of course one of them, as I think we probably all agree. It's meant to preserve the unique characteristics of that part of New York City. Okay. I also wanted to just orient us a little bit in terms of the timeline. So while City Island has been home to nautical and waterfront uses since the mid 1800s, it wasn't actually until 1976 that this land use designation was proposed. It was then passed in 77. It's been only analyzed twice throughout its history, but the 1980 version was never publicly released. So there's only one public accessible document that says, hey, we made this decision on how to zone this different pieces of land. And and here's how we're doing. And then I just added 2020, which is where we are. So in the 40+ year history, it's only been analyzed twice and only once publicly released. So what does it say? So there are 4 different pieces to this regulation. So the first and the most important one for us, especially for tonight, is to promote and strengthen the unique character of the Special City Island District for nautical and waterfront activities by limiting permitted uses to those which complement and enhance the existing character of the special district. AKA what this means, make sure spaces on City Island where we have deep waters, accessible waters are used for nautical and waterfront activities. So I'll go through the next 3 pretty quick. This one is just, City Island is known for low residential and commercial character, so there are different height regulations. City Island, actually, you'll see the tallest building is 5 feet tall. That is what everyone could go up to, but most buildings on the island only go up 1 or 2 stories. The other one, I think we'll all remember this one, is to maintain and protect the village quality by imposing special controls on building setbacks and signs. And then 4th, which is also an important part of this, the city has to protect the land and the area and the city's tax revenue. Essentially what this means is, are we using the land to the best potential for the quality of life of the residents and for the city to make money off of that land? Is it better used as a commercial site, a residential site, or a manufacturing site? So like I said, the first part of the regulation is the one that I'm most interested in, and how we're strengthening the character of City Island by limiting permitted uses to nautical and waterfront activities. And this image was actually created by Linda Baldwin, who went through and just circled all the M1 and commercial districts that we have here. And so essentially what this means is, on these different sites, the majority of activities that should be happening are for nautical and waterfront activities. And when it was the mid 1800s, the entire island was filled with yards that were building America's Cup yachts and taking care of the Astor's boats and doing all these great nautical and waterfront activities. But over the years, that's changed, and over the decades. And so actually what we've been seeing is, because DCP has only analyzed their plan twice, and there hasn't been a lot of action against ad hoc planning, some of this M1 and 3 zone uses have increasingly moved away from the nautical and waterfront activities and to other uses. So when you look at the zones, we have marinas, you have restaurants, you have condo development, senior Pilot Cove, vacant land on some spots. So those are just the variety of uses that we have. And again, this is because there's a list of uses that you could have in this, but there's also an underlying understanding that the land shouldn't sit vacant, and that if you have a use that is permissible, it can still be allowed there. So for example, the 2 pieces that I'll speak to tonight are the Gateway, which is on the left-hand side of the screen, and then on the right, Consolidated Yards. So over the years, we've lost about 10 nautical and waterfront activities each year, and that's as a result of really market forces. And another way of saying this is that it's cheap land in New York City, and it's also one of the few pieces of industrial land in New York City, as throughout New York City as a whole, people have transitioned manufacturing spaces, which were a source of really good jobs for New Yorkers, into high-end residential luxury uses. And so I think a lot of industrial developers see City Island, they see this vacant land, they see their opportunity, and they come here, and this is where they're setting up shop. So why is this important? So as John was saying, in the spring, I did a capstone project, and I interviewed over 160 City Island residents. And I found, and I think most of you on this call again would agree, we all really want to live here because of the nautical heritage and village quality. It's appealing to us. It's why a lot of people come to City Island or stay on City Island. A lot of people also said that they want more publicly accessible and low cost and waterfront activities available. I love kayaking. I have a kayak. Can't really launch it anywhere unless I go to my mom's beach, or Jason Barron from Barron's Boatyard has let me launch there. But there should be a place where I'm, as a City Islander or any person from the Bronx, should be able on this beautiful piece of land to be able to launch my kayak and have access to the water. And this is also really important. A lot of people commented that the chronic vacant storefronts is an issue that undermines the appeal of City Island. So I see the conversation on industrial, commercial, residential sort of interlocking. And so you can't have the conversation on our manufacturing spaces without also thinking, why are all of our commercial storefronts, why do you go down City Island and have from Fordham Street to Hawkins Street essentially vacant right now? So I think we all agree that these are issues that are top of mind. So like John was saying, we've done some things over the last few months. And so this presentation is hopefully tying the thread. So we signed the gateway letter. We've been talking about ferry service and pushing forward and following on our community board meetings about the proposed and planned Throgs Neck ferry service. But then there's also a conversation on what happens when Hart Island opens up. What happens with the ferry dock there? Is there any possibility that ferry service can come to City Island and alleviate some of our traffic congestion, as well as bring people, tourists to City Island and help possibly bring more commercial vitality so that people from Queens are coming to 249 Clay to purchase Dan's great vintage attic toys. And then the last part is DCP's comprehensive waterfront plan. We've sat in on and will continue to sit in on the visioning sessions on DCP, who is trying to figure out how to create better uses for our waterfront plan. So there's like a real actionable moment right now where we could be having a say in New York City at large, but then specifically the Bronx and City Island, how we want our waterfront to be more accessible or just overall how it's used. Okay. So I also have a couple of action items on what you could do. Like, why is this all important? How can you step in? What is there for us to do? So right now, the two biggest things, as I was saying, are the Gateway and US Crane and Consolidated. So for the Gateway, this is, as Beverly said, and I want to really highlight this because there is not that much public land in New York City as much as there used to be. There is a real opportunity for us to lose public land and to become private. So that's one issue in and of itself. Public space is really necessary. I mean, you see any day you go over the City Island Bridge, you see people on the other side, they're fishing. I'm always wondering, where is the bathroom? How are they able to stay there for the day? How are they actually cutting the fish? That pier is just sitting there. That space is just sitting there. Wouldn't it be great if we had a public accessible facility where people could use the restrooms, cut the fish? I see over on 125th Street, where I used to live, they had a pier, and that pier had different fish stations. So if you caught something, you could cut it. So that's the Gateway project. And right now, again, as Beverly said, it's being transitioned to private use. And so we really want to make sure that that stays in the community and within community control. And then the second piece of land is Consolidated. So there's a variety of discussion points on that. And I know that there are some people who have been actively involved, like Marie Caruso and Barbara Thom and Lois on the call. So hopefully you guys can chime in afterwards. But right now, the Bronx Borough Office, the Department of Buildings, is reviewing US Crane's application to, they control Consolidated Yards right now. They control that land. But they're reviewing their application for what they can do on this land. And right now we don't have a sense of a few things. So specifically, we don't know what they're going to use on this land for. So are they going to be repairing cranes there? We don't know the size of the cranes. We also don't know exactly what's going to happen with the section of this land that is actively being used for the storage, repair, hauling of boats. So with those two things in mind, what you can do as City Island residents is to call our council member or attend the next CB10 meeting and amplify our message and add your own voice. I'm sure we all have, even the groups that I'm working with on this, we all have our different ideas, our own different vantage points. And so by adding your voice to this conversation, you help us to make sure that City Island's quality of life is as good as possible. The second thing is you could visit DCP's waterfront plan, and I put the website here. And you can get involved, write an email, you can attend one of the sessions. There's a bunch of ways that if you get involved, your voice is heard, it's incorporated, and then hopefully the city and private developers are able to take those ideas and move on it. And then the third, if you don't want to get involved, if you don't want to attend a meeting, let me, let John, let Beverly, Kim, David, any one of us on the call, let us know what you want about the City Island Special District and what you see as a future for how we can make sure that this island remains unique and that we're using the land as best possible. So that is my presentation.
That was wonderful, Lauren. I think we all learned a lot. And your PowerPoint skills are on point because after this, I'm just sharing a Word document that will not hold a candle to the excellent work you did. I guess the first question, just to kick it off, and then I want to take, if everyone can, if you have a question for Lauren on her presentation, use the hand button. So that way we'll try to get in, 5 questions or however many are there. So she can answer them all. I guess the first question is, can you just go a little bit into what's going on with U.S. Crane so everyone on the call is informed on that? And then my kind of side question is, as somebody who understands this stuff very well, as you do, there's been some discussion over the years. In the map you showed, there was a lot of M1 area. And, manufacturing jobs are we're not sure what's going to happen. There's some schools of thought that there were declining manufacturing jobs. But what are some other purposes you think that land could go towards? As you mentioned in your presentation, there's a lot of vacant storefronts on City Island, and there has been an overall discussion I've heard at Chamber of Commerce meetings and elsewhere about how many storefronts in this new technological age of Amazon can 4,500 people really support? So first we can go to U.S. Cranes and then what you envision for the future of these M1 sites.
Sure. So for U.S. Crane, like I said, we're at a junction right now where they've been presenting at the CB10 meeting. They're trying to get their application in for their uses. And that's part of a function of City Island's zoning overall, not just the special purpose district, has grandfathered in, doesn't have the same regulations as newer districts do. And so they're looking just to get a confirmation from the city on what they can and can't be doing there. And so that is at the essence, the fact of like what the issue is that they're trying to get in and figure out what they're going to do with that site. And right now we're not getting answers from them as to what the size is, what times of day. I've heard from a few residents that they've heard trucks idling there, 4 a.m., 6 a.m., outside of the hours where you should be idling. And so making noise, but then also polluting the air, causing congestion on the main artery of City Island when we only have 3 lanes. So that I think is like the basics of U.S. Crane. And then, they've owned the land for, I believe, the last 1.5 to 2 years. And they've been letting Consolidated Yards lease back about 40% of the land, but that lease ends on December 30th. How many days? Yeah, at the end of December of this year. And so there is a great question as to, are they renewing them? Are they committed to ensuring that nautical and waterfront uses remain on this land? And I actually am remiss to say that this site is actually the first site on City Island that was used to build boats. And so there is just like a historic legacy on this site of building America's Cup yachts and to being a great location for hauling and storing boats. So that's U.S. Crane. And then to your point about what could happen, yes, I am an expert on public administration, but I'm not an expert on city planning. And so that's part of why I've been talking with city planning about what they think. I want their attention. I want their expert opinion. I live right on King Avenue by where they put the new condos. And I know that that is part of one of the manufacturing zones. And there was a lot of pushback at first for that to become condos because, well, what's going to happen with parking? What's going to happen with all these additional people? But parking has not been much of an issue. And it actually seems to enhance the quality of life in my community. So I think, to your point, I am actually an advocate and of the mindset that urban manufacturing will come back, hopefully, to America and to New York City specifically, because they are great jobs. There is a huge boom, especially with the green economy coming back and a way for us. You see, Brooklyn Navy Yards was thriving right before the pandemic. They had, distilleries, 3D manufacturing, artist cooperatives. A whole bunch of stuff was happening at Brooklyn Navy Yards, and that's sort of my goal for City Island would be to have some of that new small business crafted manufacturing come to City Island. So that's one possibility. I don't know how much viability there actually is for, you know, the boat building to come back to City Island. There's definitely Rock the Boat. I've thought about that. They're located right now in the Hunts Point. Is there an opportunity for us to bring boat building, like a community facility? That was actually, I had a few people when I was doing my surveys talk about, it would be great if we had youth development programming where kids could come, learn about sailing, learn about building boats, which is what Rock the Boats does. So that could be happening at the sites. So yeah, there's a variety of things that could be happening there. It's just really a matter of mapping out, to your point about what is the new, how people are purchasing their daily items, how many people are actually living on City Island, and then based on that, and how many people are visiting, and based on that, then how they want to parcel up the different spaces.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for answering my question. I appreciate that. And there is a lot we don't know about some of these things, so I understand your room for nuance there is appreciated as well. Does anyone else? Lois has a question.
I don't know how to use the hand. So
That's fine. I saw your hand. Don't worry.
So, Lauren, you did a great job, Lauren. We're very proud of you. I have a couple of concerns. One is I do believe this is a tipping point for City Island. There are quite a number of these properties that are becoming available or will become available that were light industrial, or they were related to boats and nautical that may turn into light industrial. The Consolidated is located right across the street from a senior center. It's located right across the street from Pilot Cove, a senior resident. Lauren said you wouldn't put a school next to a manufacturing zone. So I want to focus on that for a minute, Lauren, because why, after building a beautiful area for seniors, not just seniors, you have a church there, you have a home for disabled, you have a public school not too far away, you have a playground. Why would you put a manufacturing site there that could be toxic? We don't know. And frankly, U.S. Crane hasn't been very transparent about their plans. So I think that, you know, the first point of business for us is to find out more about what they want to do. And I think we all agree this. Lauren agrees, we all agree that we need to find out more. What are their plans? Do they plan to use the waterways? And if they do, how would that affect the waterway? Why City Island? Why would they bring these heavy duty trucks over two bridges, through a park, up a one-way, three-lane street? Why? Unless there's some other reason, and I think it could be the waterway, looking in the future to use that as a way of transportation. Who knows? We don't know, and that's the point. We don't know. They've been very secretive, and they haven't been transparent. And it's the wrong place to put any kind of manufacturing that would cause any kind of toxins for people that are frail and are elderly in that community. So that's my point of view. Maria, I know you're, and Barbara. Any other? Maria?
No, I just wanted to, and I wrote it in the chat though, I wanted to just clarify what the sequence of this property as it was purchased, the oldest boatyard was purchased 3 years ago from from West Rodstrom, from a gentleman named Joe Briotti, who owns the construction site on Schofield, directly across the street from 239 Play. And he has used his property there on Schofield to park his trucks for his cable company, and he's been doing that for a long time. So he purchased Consolidated 3 years ago, and then last year was approached by U.S. Crane to purchase Consolidated from him. So he had leased it back, Joe had leased it back to Wes as a boatyard. So even though he owned it, he was still leasing it to Wes to use as a boatyard. When these Crane people came in, they basically offered him double of what he paid. So it was a huge money-making thing for Joe, and he sold it to them. And he had already started to expand the uses to make it a contractor's yard with DOB, and those applications were approved prior to U.S. Crane coming into the picture. It's just the problem came this year when U.S. Crane submitted their amendment for when they were going to take over. That's when they instituted and put in this industrial crane use, and they put it into their application. And that's about the same time that we as a community heard that they were coming in February and in March, and we were just saying, this doesn't seem right that our community is going to now be home to a major industrial crane company. So when DOB kind of heard the concerns of the community, they are scrutinizing this application very, very closely, seeing that it's actually asking for the expansion of use of this, which is not really inconsistent with our special district. So that's where the community board got involved, because the company actually asked community board, and in essence the community, to give them sort of a letter of approval to do some work in the yard that had nothing to do with changing the use. But that's really what they were asking for, but not, again, like Lois said, not being really transparent with it. So that's where the pause button is right now. And DOB is really looking closely at this, as is community board now. And the community is just very concerned about so many different aspects of big trucks like this, not only hurting the environment, but ripping up our roads and ripping up our bridges. So that's, where our concerns come in with that.
Hello. I just, I've also been involved with this to some extent. And it's just interesting in terms of these trucks. I was trying to get home today from the island, crossing the island to my house. And one of these huge trucks was trying to back into the crane company, causing, a blockage of traffic. For a while, we have a traffic problem to begin with, and then these trucks using the fire lane and blocking traffic. This is besides the environmental issues that many people are concerned about in terms of burning diesel fuel and what they'll do to the roads. I mean, I think it's a very serious situation for the residents of City Island. It's not to be ignored. And if we care about our island, I think we have to learn more and get more involved. That's why I'm involved, because I do care. And I would like to see City Island maintain its nautical presence, and this crane company is going in the opposite direction. And I have one other thing to say that Maria brought up about the community board 10. The way they tried to get a letter from the community board was very sleight of hand and devious. So they tried to get approval from the community board asking for something so that the building department would see that the community supported them. And it was a devious move. Maria, you could probably explain it better than I can, but I don't think we can trust this company at this point. And just as of this afternoon, they were blocking traffic with one of their large trucks going into their property, and it's a problem. That's all I have to.
I agree, and I appreciate the three of you. Liam hand clapping. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for adding to the pieces that I left out, and then also adding your own opinions. And I think, Lois, I'm particularly happy that you picked up on that you wouldn't have a manufacturing zone right next to a school, which is exactly what has happened. And when I pass and I see this, like, trucks coming in and out right next to our school, I think, why is this not all, like, why is this not a soccer field? Why is this not parking for teachers? Why is this not a U-turn for traffic? Again, like to your point, Barbara, about traffic being held up and just having a small artery. Why are we not asking DCP to be thinking more holistically about all of the spaces on the island, about how we're actually building community and how we're improving the quality of life for all residents? So again, I think this is really a point for all of us to be speaking at CB10, to be speaking with different CI Rising board members, to be speaking with DCP to say, hey, stop looking at these single sites because this is leading to sites being turned over to uses that we don't want. We need to be thinking holistically about what is this entire section of City Island? How do we get away from having trailers in the back of our school to having a UPK site and having actual facilities for our kids to be learning and to be playing and to be actually doing productive things on City Island? And so if we keep letting these sites go to different industrial uses as they're zoned, but again, not specifically what we want there, it's just not going to lead to a community that we all want.
Yeah, and Lauren, I appreciate what you're saying, and I am really concerned to hear. This is the first time I've heard that the activity at Consolidated is actually tied to the activity at the corner of Schofield Street, where all of the kids who are going into school are basically having to walk in front of trucks moving in and out at the same time that kids are walking to school. It's just it's a disaster waiting to happen, it's inconsistent with the quality of life on the island, it's just patently unsafe. I also see that there's a question in the chat. I don't want to let it go by, from Nicole, who asks, what are the community uses envisioned for the parcel on the north side of the island? I think that's talking about the Gateway site.
Yep. Yeah.
Lauren, do you want me to tackle that? Do you want to take it?
No, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So the answer to that question is to be determined. But the way that the Gateway board is set up, and again, to just flag my conflict here, I am the lawyer that set it up. The way that the Gateway board is set up is that there are community and constituent representatives who all make up that board, so that when and if the Gateway nonprofit corporation gets that license to develop and maintain that property, that there will be constituencies from all over the island having a conversation, an engaged, thoughtful conversation about what are our priorities and what those uses should be. So I hope that that is helpful and responsive to your question.
Okay, and we'll do one more question till we move on to the next thing, and it is Maria, because Maria had her hand up and I see her on the front screen here.
I just
ahead,
want to bring a point back to the school and what Lauren was saying about to get those trailers out of the schoolyard and do some other things that would be more advantageous for the kids. Our oyster reef group is involved currently in restoring the wetlands area, which is part of Parks Department land that's behind the ball field by the school. And we've been getting volunteers to go there and dig out the weeds and plant the plants. And we're going to have another volunteer weekend, the weekend of Halloween. But the ironic thing is we were able to get a permit for that piece of property so that we could continue doing our oyster and water quality testings. But it's so ironic that that's located behind the school. We're trying to restore the wetlands to, in fact, help teach the children about how important the environment is and how clean waterfront is very important. But Parks Department will not allow us to have children on that space right now. We are not allowed to bring children onto that space. And it seems insane to me that it's located behind the school. It's their future, and we're not able to bring them on to give them any kind of guidance or to teach them anything about the environment. It's insane to me, and we're hoping that changes in the future, but I don't understand it right now.
Thank you very much, Maria, for all you're doing on a lot of these things. And as a matter of fact, on our social media channel tomorrow, we'll be sharing your latest BronxNet piece about the work you guys are doing behind there. So we all appreciate you, and anything we can do to cross promote each other and the great work. A lot of different hands, yourself, Lois, Barbara, Lauren, Beverly, everyone on the call is doing. We want to do that. And speaking of hands, before we get on with the agenda, Tommy, you had something you wanted to add, sir?
Hold on, I could. Oh, Tommy, you're muted. I'm trying to unmute you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
We have 2 dates coming up for COVID, you know, the antibodies.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people, you know, want to get it done. I did. I was very sick. I had the flu in January, and then I got sick like a month later. And the doctor told me if I didn't have a cough and I didn't have a fever, I didn't have it. I couldn't breathe for like 10 days. I was in bed for 10 days. But I did go for the COVID antibody test last week at the office, and I did have it.
Mhm.
So, you know, peace of mind, you know, you might want to just take advantage of it.
Mhm.
And it's on the 27th. There's 2 times. There's one at Astor, and I got the dates, location, but I don't want to leave. And also, if you know anybody who needs food, you know, every Tuesday and throughout the district, Mark gives out tons of food, you know, with help from other people, you know. And I think there's a lot of seniors that really can use it. We're there for you. And if anybody needs anybody for food, call the office. It's 718-931-1721. But if you need the COVID testing for the antibodies or the COVID test itself, I think we have many different locations. Just call the office for the location. I can give you the next week's. Next week's on the 27th. It's on corner of Astor and Boston Road at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And in the afternoon, it's at 550 Balcom Avenue. That's the Throgs Neck Housing complex. So I just wanted to pass that on to everybody that you know, might be interested in that.
Tommy, thank you. And if you can share the flyers with me, we'll put them on the social media channels as well. Because I know you guys are doing food, and I know a lot of other people, and you guys are doing a lot of events. And we do, anytime an elected official office or the community board or the precinct council gives us a flyer, it goes right on our channels. And then we do try to stagger them to go out with everything else.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tommy. And before we're gonna jump around the schedule a little bit because we've had someone join us, special guest appearance. Senator Biaggi is actually on the line, so I wanted to give her the opportunity to address us because I know she may be pressed for time. We appreciate her time, but Senator, if you want to address and anything you'd like to say, I'm sure we'd all love to hear from you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. I'm not going to take much time, mainly because I know that we're all thinking about so many things, but mainly we're thinking about November 3rd and hoping that we get to sleep after November 3rd. At least I hope that I get to sleep.
After tonight's debate. Hoping we can sleep after tonight's debate.
Sleeping after tonight's debate. I think it's going to make me raise my adrenaline like everybody else and make us all feel crazy. Anyway, okay, here we are. So I have a few announcements, and then I want to echo a little bit of what you just heard. So number one, I'm sure you know this already, but I'm going to say it again. This Saturday, the 24th, is the first day of early voting. Do not vote alone, okay? I'm sure that everybody here already has a voting plan or has voted by absentee ballot. If you need information about any of this at all, please tell me in the chat. We will share it with you. Emmanuel from my office is on tonight as well with me. So he is listening intensely and will put information into the chat, whatever is needed. It's 10 days of early voting. And so the day before November 3rd, November 2nd, there is no early voting. It's very weird. I know it ends on November 1st. And then of course you can vote on election day. Okay, so make a plan. Also, I don't know how many people are on here, 27, including myself. Okay, 27 people are on here, including myself. So I'm just gonna do some math really, really very quickly. So we have 27 times 10 is 270, okay? If each one of us on here texted 10 people in our lives, that's 270 people who will now know that early voting starts on Saturday and that they can also vote on November 3rd on election day. Also, I'm sure that of the 27 people on here, we must know somebody in a battleground state. We must, right? Battleground states are Florida, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina. Texas is like becoming a swing state, even though it's really usually a red state. What am I missing? Michigan, Wisconsin.
North Carolina.
I said that.
Okay. All right.
And I think I must have hit everyone. The point I'm saying is that there is an amazing app. It's the Meet Joe app, I think it's called. If you just download it and you put your information in, it will tell you in your contacts of your friends who live in battleground states. That's amazing. And then you can make sure that they have a plan. A lot of people that I know who live in other places actually didn't have a plan, which is embarrassing in its own sense, because how do I know anybody who doesn't have a plan? But also, this is just to show you it's our responsibility. So please do that. I know that we all know 10 people. I have been texting people like crazy. So there's that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, to the point that you just heard about food insecurity, to the extent that we can continue to help with this, we really want to make sure that we can. So please let us know. We, in the throes of the pandemic, at the worst possible moments, we were able to secure tens of thousands of meals. And so we are going to continue to do that, but we want to, of course, make sure that it goes to people who need it. I know that there's need everywhere. And just to shed some light, at PS 72, which is one of the grab and go sites in District 34, in Throgs Neck, 600 families a day. 600 families a day are going to get meals. That is just one school in an area that usually does not have that high of a need. So I'm just trying to really put into perspective just how I think dire the food insecurity issue has come and has grown in the Bronx. And so we're committed to it and we want to continue to do whatever we can. So I just want everyone here to know that. So please tell us. You don't have to be embarrassed. And you also know you can do it in anonymity. I know that a lot of people are not used to interacting with government or with anybody who is in a government office, an elected official or otherwise. So I want to make it as comfortable and as safe as possible. So please, if you know somebody or if it's you, just let us know. Nobody will ever know. And also, it would be like an honor to be able to help in that regard. Let's see. No longer can talk about the census because that is over on the 15th, was over on the 15th. The last thing I want to say, even though I know that this was brought up already about the crane company. So I am fully briefed on this issue. I am very aware about this issue. I met with Matt Cruz on this issue. And we also had a meeting with one of the members from the crane company. Here is where we are. I now know that they have applied to the DOB and that they were denied. They are waiting for a technical review of their application. So once we have the result of, this is the commitment that I have from the crane company. Once we have the result of whatever it is that DOB says they can or cannot do with the piece of property that they have under the zoning that they have with the actual operations that they want to run, they are going to meet with to figure out what we are all collectively going to do here. I am happy to facilitate it. Matt Cruz is happy to facilitate it. The point I'm trying to make here is that I want to be of service here, mainly because what I specifically said to them with Matt Cruz and others as my witness was this. I said, I understand that this land and property is zoned a certain way. I understand what you're saying you want the use to be, but my number one priority is to make sure that we are not allowing for more pollution and more destruction to our environment in the Bronx, especially during a respiratory pandemic. That is my number one priority. Yes, you might have trucks that go over the bridge that are too heavy. Yes, you might have, and all of those things are also important. But the number one thing that I care about is the health of the people who live in the Bronx. And so I made that very clear to them, and they got it. And I think did not expect that as the number one thing that I cared about. I think that they probably were thinking about other things. We talked about a lot of issues. The point I'm just trying to make is that I have not been quiet about it. I went directly to the source and I confronted it head on. So this is still a pending issue, but we will do this together. And there's more information about the meeting, but the long and short is essentially that we brought up the issue of the housing with the seniors. We brought up the issue of the bridge. We brought up the issue of pollution. We brought up the issue of the sidewalk. What is it called? Remind me of the
Curb
term.
cut.
That's right. The curb cuts, the turnaround that they wanted to build, and the actual use of the yard, which they said 50% they want for the marina, 50% for the cranes. And they also made a commitment, which I hope that was also shared, and I think it was shared with the Oyster Reef Project, that they want to commit to protecting that. So that was really nice that they said that. And so words are very great, but we want to make sure that there's action. So the point I'm just trying to make is that it's just words. So let's wait to see what DOB says, and then let's make sure that we are coming together collectively to talk about this issue and figure out what we're going to do next. But just please know that I could not have been clearer about what was important.
Great. Well, Senator, thank you for your work on the U.S. Cranes and for all you do for
Thank
City
you.
Island State. And
Thank you for having me.
always. And as a matter of fact, in the next thing we're going to touch on is the Hutchinson River. So we're going to get right into another issue you're working on.
Would you like me to talk about it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so just very quickly, so we are doing we are proposing a meeting next week, my office again for the second time, with the mayor of Mount Vernon, and of course, many of you who are here, some City Island residents and others, as well as we're going to invite Senator Bailey, because Senator Bailey also represents another portion of Mount Vernon. I have a small piece, the piece that is actually affected here, but he also has a much bigger portion of Mount Vernon. So because this issue is so large, and because of the federal court case that basically said you better clean this up and you better do something about it, I think that what Mount Vernon is probably going to be asking the state for is help. Now, just to be very clear, the Mother Nature Bond Act, which we passed but is being gated by the budget director in the state, is something that we can pull money down from. It's a $3 billion fund. There is, I think, $550 million that are carved out for projects like this. And so this is one revenue possibility for this project. But because we are in a revenue crisis in the state of New York, we obviously have a double-digit teen deficit in our budget. I do not foresee that $3 billion and the carve out in there that could help with this project is something that could even be used in the next year, unless we raise revenue in the state of New York. Okay, so until then, we're going to try to come together and figure out what we can do as is, because obviously Mount Vernon cannot afford to not honor a federal judge and their decision. And also beyond that, we want to make sure that Mount Vernon succeeds and that City Island and Mount Vernon also are able to come together to figure this out and resolve the issue, because the issue is that the water is spewing with sewage, and that is disgusting. So we're working on it. I think the meeting is probably either going to be next week. If not next week, it's going to be right after Election Day, but I think it's for Tuesday. So yes. Amazing. So I'll see you on Tuesday. And if there's anything that you need from me before then, just let me know, but continuing to work on this issue. It's not an easy one because of the financial aspect of it too.
No, and as you said, Senator, this is an issue that's been decades in the making, but I think in the last year with your help, we've made a lot of progress. So I want to thank you for your help on that as well. Everyone, I'm going to be sharing my screen now. I don't have as quite a good presentation as Lauren just had, so everyone's going to have to bear with me there a little bit, but we'll still get to some very important things here. Everybody should be able to see this as best they can. This is with respect to the Hutchinson River. The senator touched on a lot of this, so I'm just going to blow through it very quickly. Since our founding, causes the environment and climate have been our top concerns at our meetings. This has led for our group to partner with different environmental groups, the Waterfront Alliance, Save the Sound, Renews New York, and Sea Grant New York. As you all know, the Hutchinson pollution is well known. It was cited as one of the most polluted rivers in 1999. Over the last 11 years, Save the Sound has consistently rated it as an F for quality in our little area of Long Island Sound. Not every area is, but our area is consistently an F. And the Trump administration, which is no fan of environmental justice whatsoever, did still proceed with a federal court action to ensure the city of Mount Vernon's compliance with the Clean Water Act. They required to keep a Clean Water Act permit. They do not keep that. As you all know, in October of last year, we did a well-attended panel. That panel brought us together with different environmental groups and to discuss rising sea levels as well as water quality issues. The result of that was the senator actually hosted a meeting with us, with the mayor of Mount Vernon, Sean Patterson Howard, in February. The meeting, as we said, was arranged by Senator Biaggi, and it was explained that Mount Vernon would be investing funds towards addressing these concerns, which was about $500,000, and that they would need to get their fiscal house in order with a state audit so they could get bonding authority. As they have no bonds, the city is without the ability to borrow for long-term projects. The audit was just completed last month, and as the senator alluded to, 4 days later, a federal court order came down forcing the city to fix their long broken system. They have 12 months to identify all the sources of illicit discharge. I'm not going to go into explicitly what that means, but you all have an idea of how gross that is. They have to regularly update the EPA and the New York State DEC. And within 2 months, Mount Vernon has to identify a local point of contact for public concerns regarding stormwater management and compliance. We are going to be all over that person like white on rice, as you can imagine. And then, so where do we go from here? As the senator said, and also working with the Hutchinson River Restoration Project, Barbara Zom is on this call. She has been super involved in this, so I just want to give her a sign of appreciation for that. We are also, we're working to meet again with Mount Vernon elected officials, which will happen next week. And given that Mount Vernon is most likely in need of money, as the senator touched on, we're going to be going to try to see if there's any money in the the Mother Nature Bond Act. And this may be delayed, as she's already touched on, due to COVID-19. So that's where we are right now with the Hutchinson River. I'm going to switch right now because we're, pressed for time, but we want to reach out to everybody here and make sure everybody's up to date. We also got an update on Rodman's Neck. And what's going on with Rodman's Neck? As again, I sit on the precinct council board. There's a memorandum of understanding that is almost as old as I am, that the precinct council is a major point of contact with the mayor's office regarding all things related to Rodman's Neck. We had a meeting in February with the NYPD. They came in. They were very short on specifics, but they promised us that they were going to fully enclose the range, which had been a long-term ask. They basically came back a few months later and said, oh, well, now COVID, we can't do that, which was pretty crappy, pardon my French. But also we had written them a letter to clarify some of the community concerns many of you have expressed in these meetings, and questions. We asked them to start a notify NYC notification for when explosives are en route to the range. Pretty basic thing we're asking them to do. They did not respond to that in their letter. We asked them to do a heavy shooting schedule that could be released online, could be released through Notify NYC, could be e-blasted out to the community board, to the elected officials, to members of the community. They haven't responded to that in their reply. We asked them to redefine the shooting schedule to kind of cut down on some of the times there. We knew that was a big ask that we need not get. They didn't even address that. We asked them to modernize the public announcement system. I am aware, because some of you are nice enough to text me very early in the morning, that you hear explicitly what is being said on the public announcement system at Rodman's Neck from your homes. Obviously, that's unacceptable, but we are working on that. They claim they're going to turn down the speakers. There's going to be some signage. We're going to continue to push on this. That's not an adequate response. They are still trying to work with the mayor's office and OMB to accelerate temporary baffling. That's super important to us all. As we said earlier, the fully enclosing the range, they do not have the necessary funds for that. They're looking into new design options. We asked them about what jurisdictions have what agencies have jurisdiction over the environmental concerns at Rodman's Neck. They said basically that and this is something I found out that was kind of interesting. They take 34 soil samples twice a year, and then there are 28 samples from groundwater monitoring wells. There are also 3 air monitoring stations. They provided none of the readings for these things, but it's very interesting that they have these things. From there, we also have, we asked them what other agencies utilize the range. We know the troopers are there. We know police departments in Connecticut utilize the range. They should, as they're using our space, they should try to chip into being good neighbors and chip into the baffling. They didn't answer that question. We asked them to, about past FOIL responses, which they have not been great about. They gave us a standard response that they will be pursuant to the requirements and limitations to FOIL, which is BS. And then we asked them to fully commit to having DDC representatives, as well as the vendors from the contractor that was chosen at future meetings of our monitoring committee, so we can all be in the same room and get the same questions, which in the end will cut down on costs. There was no response to that. And then finally, we asked about the monitoring wells, which are, was provided above. So there is a lot going on with this. I know those were 2 very big topics. I know I did it kind of rapid fire on everybody. If people have questions now, they can ask them now. If people have questions they want to save till later, they can email me at City Island Rising, or email the board rather, to cityislandrising@gmail.com. I know that's a lot of information to take in a short period of time. So what I'm going to also do is take that report and put it on our social media channels, so everybody gets the same information that just went out here, because I know that was a lot. Beyond that, I'm just going to say very quickly, we had a DOT walkthrough. We are trying to get them to do some sort of speed reduction mechanisms on Miniford Avenue, which, as many of you know, is the secondary raceway of the community now that we have a speed camera on the main avenue. So we met with the DOT commissioner. He came right to Miniford Avenue. We did a walkthrough. There's a lot of driveways. A lot of people have taken what should be a very narrow driveway and built it out to be a majority of their yard frontage. So that unfortunately obstructs areas where the speed humps could go in. There are areas where there are different, fire hydrants and things of that nature. So we are working around those things. We also brought the DOT commissioner to the end of Ditmar Street, which, as we all know, floods at every mood tide. So, it was a really informative meeting. We also talked about some other pedestrian safety measures, including enhanced crosswalks, which might be a good kind of middle ground to meet people where they want them on either Pilot Street, on Hawkins Street, and City Island Avenue, both on City Island Avenue, and maybe on Bay Street where the library is and where the Methodist church is. So these were all things we talked about in that meeting. Also had a meeting with some folks from Transportation Alternatives. This is the primarily the cyclist advocacy group from the Bronx. They have a lot of concerns about safety in Pelham Bay Park. So we're going to try to work together with them, with the Friends of Pelham Bay Park, which is another nonprofit group led by Nilka Martel, who is wonderful and a huge advocate for our borough. And we're going to be coming up with a plan for all 3 groups that we're going to present to the community board and to the elected officials to really up the safety within Pelham Bay Park. And as we all know, the bikes, I mean, you see those pins they put up at the crosswalks. It's kind of like a bowling alley. Those pins are knocked down at least once a week nowadays. And these are things we're trying to address. We're trying to be more thoughtful, more creative. And I see this as a very good partnership that we're going to do with other community-based organizations to effectuate change there. Finally, and again, I apologize, this is a little bit of rapid fire, but we have a lot of events coming up. On Sunday, November 1st at Bridge Park, at the Catherine Scott Promenade, as it's also known as, we are going to be doing a training with the New York Sea Grant program. They've developed an app where you can document all the flooding from your phone and goes right into their system. And this is what we're going to use with the senator, with other elected officials to try to make sure we're having funding for, our own real climate change issues on City Island and within the surrounding area. So this is, again, going to be Sunday, November 1st at noon at Bridge Park. There's a link that was in the last email that went out. So everybody check that out. We want to have a group. Ideally, what I'd like to do is have 10 to 12 flooding captains from different points of the island where we know these issues exist and are out there every time there's a rainstorm, taking photos so we can document these things to get the change that we need. On November 2nd, we are co-sponsoring a blood drive with the City Island Community Center, with the New York Blood Center, with New York Department of Health. There is a severe shortage of blood. This affects all the hospitals. This affects everything that's going on. People are understandably, they've been indoors. They haven't been participating at blood drives. Unfortunately, our regular blood drive that happens on City Island, the church is kind of under orders from up top, not that they're not allowed to do as many events as they once did. So working with the community center, working with some of our community partners, we're going to be doing a blood drive. It's going to be, a really important thing. You do need to pre-schedule your blood donation because this is all being done under every COVID guideline you could ever imagine. So you go on, again, there's a link in the agenda here. Get on, register for the blood drive. We really need your help, guys. And City Island has always been a great blood drive location, but because our blood drive has been shut down recently due to no fault of anybody involved in it, we need everybody to get out there and donate blood. It really goes a long way. Again, super important. November 2nd from 1 to 7 p.m. We had it staggered so it's not on work hours, so people can go to work, come home, and donate blood. Super important. Finally, and I just got this date 2 hours ago, on November 7th, we're going to be doing another Narcan training. Everyone remembers we did the naloxone Narcan training. This is the drug that you can administer on your own to someone if they are overdosing. We know our neighborhoods had a lot of issues with this. So we're going to be doing another Narcan training. And we're actually going to be doing this with small businesses. I've already reached out to some of the nightlife establishments in our area. I've already spoken to Mike at Man Overboard and to the McGowan and Hayes family at the Snug. And we're going to be trying to get all the bar owners to also be on board with this, because chances are if somebody is going to overdose, it's going to be very late at night and they may be out in a public place. So we're going to try to up knowledge about this issue, expand knowledge on this issue, expand distribution of the Narcan and the naloxone to reach as many people as we possibly can to really, again, continue to keep overdose rates down. It's so super important. I know David took it last time, the training, and I just really want to encourage everybody that, this training is probably only going to be an hour. It's well worth that hour to get the naloxone training and to really help, help our neighbors here who are in need. So I know I just did rapid fire. I know everyone wants to get onto the debates that are starting at 9 o'clock. So I'm knowledgeable about that as well. Does anyone have a question about anything I just presented right now?
Can I talk about the kittens?
Just 1 second. We're gonna get to new and old business. That's it. You're on the agenda. Okay. Does anyone else have anything on what was just presented? Okay, since we already did the elected officials, I'm gonna move past old business and news business. Anoosh Donaghue, take it away. Lead us out.
Okay, hi. I just wanted to check in with the group because, we started this group earlier this year for TNR, and which is trap, neuter, release of feral cats, and that's all we set out to do. But we are pretty much at about 70 cats and kittens at this point that we have rescued, TNR, fostered, adopted out. Right now, we have about 15, we call them clam digger kittens, that we have rescued on City Island out of Pelham Bay Park in a hole. And we just rescued another one. So things are moving so quickly. We really do need to get more volunteers. I know Kim is actually fostering 3 bibbidi bobbidi boo right now. So we are going to put stuff out in our Facebook page and all of that. We do need to find people who want to foster and adopt. We've got a lot of kittens right now. So if anyone happens to know anyone, if you can get in contact with me. Our group is Eastchester Bay Stray Cat Project. And yeah, so I'll try to put a flyer in the Clipper and wherever else I can. But if you know anyone who is looking to foster and adopt, we keep hearing about more kittens and cats like every week. So we're all volunteer, and we do yeah, we're going to be doing fundraising soon. So let me know if anybody wants to. I think we made an impact this year, even with COVID and everything. 70 is a lot of cats to get fixed and take off of our, boat yards and backyards and everything. So hopefully we'll be seeing a difference in the numbers over the next few years of not seeing so many feral cats. And I know people have complaints about that. And just get in touch with me for any reason having to do with cats. That's pretty much
And
it.
Anoosh, how can they get in touch with you if they need to get in touch?
So you can actually go on our Facebook page. You can send me a message directly. Anoosh Donaghue, I'm on Facebook, and also Gmail is City Island TNR, which is trap neuter release at Gmail. I also have a phone number, 347-871 meow. You can call me there. And yeah, so that's pretty
Anoosh,
much
thank
it.
you so much.
Yeah.
If you have any flyers, send them to us.
Yes,
And we'll
I will.
pass them out to you,
I promise.
or we'll list them out to our
Okay.
list here.
You.
Thank you, Anoosh. And
All
as we
right.
close out the meeting, I just want to thank everybody who presented tonight. I want to thank Beverly, David, Lauren. I want to thank Tommy Messina, Senator Biaggi, Emmanuel, who works for Senator Biaggi. I want to thank Maria Lois and Barbara Zom, everyone who contributed tonight. If you have any questions, email me, or email us rather, at cityislandrising@gmail.com. I want to let everybody off because I know everybody wants to get to the debate. So thank you all so very much. And you have 4 minutes to spare. Thank you.